Tommy Allen from TommyAllenMusic.com. And this week, we got the pleasure of speaking with Ian Parker, guitarist, singer, songwriter. Come check it out. It's great to see you, Ian. Thank you very much for doing the interview.
Absolutely. No, nice to see you, Tommy.
So the first thing was, I wanted to ask you, I didn't know if you knew, but you and I share exactly the same birthday.
Is that right?
Yeah, both the 13th of December.
13th of December, yeah, and also Chris Lomas, and you played with Chris Lomas, didn't you? So, yeah, wow.
So I always remember when it's your birthday, so I do send a little, happy birthday, mate, out.
Oh, I must make sure. I'm hopeless with these days. I'm like with even with Facebook and stuff. I'm sort of sporadically on there, so I miss loads of messages and stuff. So I'm sorry if you're sending me birthday messages every year. I'm responding.
That's cool. So you were 76, and you started playing when you was 8. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was about 8. Yeah. Which was the result of me getting really into the Beatles. My parents had, record collection that was not huge. My dad's in the recent years actually he's got back into vinyl, and he's buying like literally hundreds of vinyl, so he's got quite a big collection now. But when I was growing up, there was a modest record collection in the house, and this is before I'm talking back in the 80s, so this is before CDs really. My early memories are anyway, so cassettes and vinyl, but looking through his vinyl, as I would sometimes, I would find, Beatles, Stones, John Mayall, B.B. King, stuff like that. And I got really into the Beatles, and that was my first thing. I was mad about John Lennon, and I wanted an acoustic guitar, and I wanted to be John Lennon. So that, I reckon, was when I was about 8.
Blimey. And then your first band at 16, Strange Brew.
Yeah, that was my first proper band. I mean, when I was at school, excuse my phone pinging here. When I was at school, there were some other kids that had instruments, and we got a band together that did like lunchtime gigs. That was my first experience of rehearsing with a band and performing stuff. Which I'd love to. Actually, my parents have got a video of that, which somewhere, if they've still got it. This is when I was 13, 14. Out of that band, then emerged Strange Brew, which we went from probably 5 kids doing. Actually, we were called Spice. This was before the Spice Girls at school. So we had Spice. We had like these grey jumpers with a logo on. It was incredible. And out of Spice came Strange Brew, with 3 of us going forward into that one, and then I was into Hendrix and Cream, obviously, hence the name Strange Brew, and that band was the first band that I was in that went out and played in pubs and stuff, just in the West Midlands, in Stourbridge, where I live, and a little bit further afield, Birmingham, Coventry, stuff like that, And
was you fronting that?
Well, because it was kind of a Cream type setup, and the bass player Dave Jenkins, who it was like he would sing half the stuff and I would sing half. He was like the Jack Bruce, so he would sing quite a few of the Jack Bruce songs, and So it was my first experience of doing some singing, but it didn't really have a front man as such. It was a kind of band with 2 people that sang depending on the song. So.
Oh, right, okay. And then from that on to Monty Turnbull?
Yeah, so that was when so then after Strange Brew, I went to university, and Strange Brew kind of sort of folded by virtue of the fact that I went off to university, the drummer went to university. We were kids, it was just kids doing something for fun and a hobby, and then we went off on our separate ways. And then while I was at university, actually there was a band in between, thinking about it. While I was at university, I met this guy. I don't know if you've ever come across this guy, Melvin Hancox from Birmingham. At that time, had a massive impact on me. He's 3 years older than me. So when I was like 17, 18, and Strange Brew was winding up, I'd seen him play with a band called Vincent Flats.
Right.
He was the guitarist for Vincent Flats in kind of the peak of that band. That was a Brummie band, but they did quite a bit actually. They were sort of going places for a while. Older guys. I mean, all of the rest of that band would have, at that time, this is 25 years ago, and at the time, all of that band were in their 40s, if not 50s, some of them. But like a kind of boogie band. And Melvin was the guitarist in there. great player, really influenced me a lot, and I would go and watch him in pubs. And then he and I had a band together. It was his band, really. It was called Blue Horizon after the label, because he was really into Fleetwood Mac, and he got me into Peter Green, that kind of stuff. So we did that for a little bit while I was at university. And then when I finished university, literally the day that I left university, I was said to myself and my family and everyone, right, that's it. I'm gonna make my living from playing music now, you know. And then we started Monty Turnbull, which probably, I don't know, we had maybe a year of doing that before then Chris Lomas got involved, and Chris came in on bass, and that then somehow ended up being Parker's Alibi.
With Tony Bailey.
Yeah, Tony Bayliss, yeah, on drums. Yeah.
Right, and that was 1999, roughly.
Yeah, I mean, I lose track of the dates. I recently, since the lockdown, I was just going through quite a few old photographs, big box of photos I haven't looked at for years, you know, and the stuff in there going right back to the late 90s. You know, I look at it, I can't believe that, you know, happened. I don't remember myself looking like that, or, you know, just being in those situations at all, you know. It's what happens when you get to our age, isn't it? We're at that first, I reckon we're at that first stage of life where you're old enough to, you know, where you look back on things that's like 20 years ago, at least 20, and you're thinking like, wow, that's a long time ago, because I was a kid. I didn't feel like I was, but I was just a kid, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. I've got a box of photos, the same. I look back and think the same. There's one of us with Otis Grand in one of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, we did that thing in Wrexham.
Yeah. I don't know when that was, but that was years ago.
It was, yeah. It was probably at least, I don't know, 16, 17 years ago, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Guessing, yeah.
So from there, it changed into the Ian Parker Band. And then 2003, you were signed to Ruf Records.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So what happened, I mean, Parker's Alibi was trying to get signed to Ruf. And Thomas Ruf came over, actually. I don't know I can't remember if he came specifically to see us or if he was just in this country to do whatever business he was doing. I remember he came to see Parker's Alibi at the Colne Festival, probably 2001, something like that, or two, I don't know, maybe one. And in a way, that was sort of the end of Parker's Alibi, because he was saying that he was interested in what I was doing, but he didn't really want to sign Parker's Alibi. He didn't really like that band, which temporarily hurt some friendships, I think, for a while, you know, as these things do when bands break up and stuff. So the Ian Parker Band was still with Morgan on keys. He's played in everything I've ever done. He's been involved with, but different rhythm sectioning at that point, trying to just, you know, build on the Parker's Alibi following, but just do something else. And then around that time, I did sign to Thomas, 2002 or 3.
Was that what you dreamed it would be, being signed?
I would think I was extremely naive about the music business. So you see, you know, Ainsley Lister was already signed to Ruf, and you know how these things work on a small circuit like the blues circuit, you know. So Ainsley and I are great mates now, and he, believe it or not, he played bass for me as a demo. I couldn't believe. I mean, it's just like we just have such a laugh together when we do some double headliners now and again, and we like all of the whatever sort of rivalry there might have been when we were kids and the egos and stuff. That is just so far out of the window that when we do these double headers, and it's so much fun, and we have a jam session at the end. We love playing together and stuff. And let's say even a month or two ago, I can't remember, we had a diary crisis, and I literally I didn't have a bass player. It was going to be an embarrassing sort of mistake. Like, oh, I can't believe this. I'm supposed to be playing this gig tonight in Devizes, and we literally don't have a bass player. So Mick, my friend Mick, who books all the gigs and everything, we were all of us were on phones to different people trying to think of ideas. Who can we get on bass? Who do we know that's going to be able to do this? And all of a sudden, Mick phones me back and he said, I've sorted it. Okay, mate, great. He said, just get in the car, drive down there, it's sorted. Oh, I'm thinking, okay, a list of bass players is going through my head. It's going to be one of the usual suspects. They're all great. They're pros. You know, it's fine. They'll turn up and we'll have a quick chat and we'll do the gig. He said, Ainsley's doing it. I was like, Ainsley's doing it on bass. It's so cool but I just thought that it was great because it just shows how like, you know, I mean, Ainsley is just so modest and without that kind of pretentiousness that I certainly had when I was younger. If he told me like 10 years ago, would you play bass in my band for a gig? I'd be like, well, I'm not going to play bass in your band. Why would I do that kind of thing, you know? But he was just so cool. He said, yeah, I'll come and play. It'll be great, you know. And he played brilliantly. It was superb. Anyway, I've completely gone off on a tangent here, but I got to there. How did I get here, Tommy? Why am I now talking?
I was saying, was it what you dreamed being signed?
Right. No, that's why. This is why I got onto Ainsley's. There is a link. I'm not going quite. You know, this isn't completely the lockdown madness. This is there is a link here. So I was thinking back in those days. I remember Ainsley signed Thomas Ruf, and our perception from the outside of that, you know, like everyone I knew, I didn't really know Ainsley that well. I met him a couple of times at gigs, you know, and I opened for him down at the Torrington. In Finchley, if you remember that one, and so I'd met him a couple of times, and so all of a sudden, Ainsley's doing so well. I mean, he's signed to this label. Oh, really? Yeah, you should get yourself signed like Ainsley. I mean, you wouldn't believe how well it's going for him. But, you know, everyone's drip feeding this information that's probably not actually that accurate. Well, actually, I know it wasn't accurate, not because I doubt that. A label like Ruf can do good for an artist. That's not what I'm saying. But I remember the kind of figures that were being bandied around, not by Ainsley, but by people who didn't really know anything about it. They'd heard some rumor, and people tell, he's got his £500,000 deal or whatever, all this nonsense, you know. So you think, I need to get one of these deals, you know. I'm going nowhere here, you know. I've got to try and get something like Ainsley. He seems to be doing so well. He's traveling the world. It's all going brilliantly for him, and I'm sure it was, you know, relatively speaking, but. My point was really, I signed that deal, and actually I was extremely naive about how it all worked. I mean, the first album I made for Thomas, I kind of, musically speaking, I conned him really, not on purpose, but he'd seen me doing my like blues band act with, whether that was with Parker's Alibi, and he came to see me playing in Germany with that new lineup, the Ian Parker band with Andy Edwards on drums and Steve Amadio on bass. He came to see us somewhere. At that point, whenever I was playing live, it was just an out-and-out blues guitar show, the kind of stuff that Thomas deals with, that's in the market that he sells within, etc. And then I made that album called Inside, my first album, and this was, so I'm naively thinking, but I've got a record deal now, so I'm going to make an album. He's going to release it. It's going to be in all the shops, and I'm going to make something that's really crossover, and he'll love it. Thomas will think this is the best thing I've got on the label because it's really crossover, and the whole world's going to buy it. You know, I'm just being really naive, like a kid, really, as I was, not understanding that he's selling to a very specific market. He's not just putting these albums in the shop and people are just randomly going to walk in and buy. I mean, so naive, you know, I was. And actually, I remember the first time he gets the album back from the producer, and he phones me up, and he phoned me. He tried to put a positive spin on it at first. He kind of just said, some beautiful ballads, Mr. Parker, some beautiful ballads. And then, so I thought, okay, so he wasn't raving, but he said, you know, a couple of positives. Okay. They said, look, I need you to come to Germany next week. I need to have a meeting with you. Okay, sure. So I go over there, and basically, not in a terrible way, but he gave me a bit of a dressing down, really. He's basically saying, what the hell is this? Not like it's poor quality or what a load of rubbish, but what is this? This is not what I've seen you do live. This is not what I can sell in the marketplace that I operate in. I sell, you know, I have a team that is well connected in terms of blues agencies, blues press. They're going to send this out to the blues press who are expecting to hear a certain kind of music. You know, they're going to put this on and think, what the hell is this? There's not really much screaming blues guitar going on. It's extremely laid back. There's lots of acoustics going through it as well. And so, you know, I had to sort of take it on the chin, really. Oh, okay, he's not pleased at all. You know, this is a disaster, which meant really that the next couple of years I had to, in order to stay with the label and not get booted off, which was kind of being suggested to me, I just had to work unbelievably hard on the road to try and sell as many albums as I could to basically earn my keep with the label, really. And that's what I did. I mean, luckily I was well geared up for that because I was very motivated to go and do the hard work of booking all the gigs, and I would play we were doing, I don't know, more than 200 gigs a year at that time. And I kind of, that hard work paid off, and Tom, in the sense that Thomas said, okay, actually, you know, it hasn't done too badly, it hasn't done brilliantly in the shops or anything, but you've worked hard, you've done a lot of touring, and because of that, you keep ordering product from me, so we'll make another one. And I kind of saved myself from being dumped from the label, really. But so, you know, I'm such a waffler, sorry, but going back to your, you know, it wasn't what I expected at all, but that's not, I don't mean that in the sense that that's Thomas's fault or the label wasn't good or something like that. It's just that I was ridiculously naive about what it meant to be signed to a label, you know, and also to be signed to a genre label, as I might describe it. You know, we're talking about, you know, a very targeted market, relatively speaking, a really small market. You know, this is not like being signed to a major label. You know, this is not being Coldplay. I happen to listen to a bit. I don't listen to Coldplay really, but I listened to a Coldplay album the other day because I was going through my CD collection, and that was around about, I was listening to X and Y, you know, from around about that time, a couple of years after perhaps. And like the idea in my head at the time, I think I kind of thought, yeah, well, I'm signed to a label. I'm like all of these guys, you know, these guys are, because they're Coldplay's like our generation, you know. And obviously what I was doing is just so far removed from that mainstream thing, you know. So I was so naive to think that I was playing that game, you know. So yeah, it was a difficult road, really, the whole Ruf Records thing.
And what songs were recorded with him then? Was that the Bare Bones, the 2000? No, that's 2011. So 2009, Demon and Doubters?
No, all of that was later. So the Thomas Ruf stuff started with Inside.
Right.
Then we did a live album and DVD, which was because we did. That was Whilst the Wind.
Whilst the Wind, yeah, 2005, and then 2008 official bootleg.
That was an independent release. The other album that came out with Ruf was Where I Belong, 2007, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And that was, you know, that was down. What's that? Your Love Is My Home, 2007. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
single.
Like the single from it. Yeah.
And then you're on to the new one, which is Spoonful of Gold.
Yeah, that's the most recent thing I recorded a couple of years ago. You know, I mean, everything I've made everything I've put out since 2008 has been independent.
Is that just you doing it, or?
Yeah.
Or have you got is your wife helping and your dad and stuff? You got a team behind you?
Not now. I mean, I did have in the early days. My dad was really involved early on. I mean, to be honest, I'm you know, I'm not really in the business anymore properly at all. You know, I do a few gigs. I do probably on average, under normal circumstances, I'm doing like one a month. You know, and in my life plan at the moment, if I can make a record every 2 or 3 years, not really for business reasons, but just because I like to go in the studio and like to keep, you know, building the catalogue just slowly but steadily with stuff, you know, that's great for me. That's all I'm doing. So.
Is that your choice, or is that life that's?
No, that's that. Well, no, it's my choice to do that. Yeah, I think I sort of I hurt myself in a way with music, in a strange way. I was so, again, it's just, to me now looking back, it's just the naivety of a kid, really. But I was so convinced in my own mind that what I was doing was going somewhere. And I mean, like, really, really hopefully going on to something bigger.
So what advice would you give to a younger you then?
I was far too emotional rather than I was responding to everything through emotions rather than through intellect, really. And I don't, you know, I'm not saying I'm brain of Britain, but I'm not daft.
No.
And I think now that I'm more mature, I look back on the choices I was making and what I was doing and think, well, why did I think that was going to work? You know, because I was responding to everything like as the artistic side of me wanted to just focus on being very emotional, expressing emotions through music. And I also had this thing in my head. I didn't want to be a business guy. So I kind of loved the fantasy of having business people around me, and I could just be the tortured artist, you know, the cliche, just leave me alone, man. I just got to write some songs and play this blues and you do the business. I can't deal with that, man. You know, that's what I wanted it to be like. But you can't do that. You certainly can't. I mean, young kids now, they can't do that with the way the business is now. It's all the whole like online, very independent. They've got to be business people. And now I look back and think it was embarrassing, really. I should have had I believe I'm smart enough to deal with it, but I just wasn't being smart. There was a lot I could have done where I could have thought, right, which markets, do I really want to aim towards, So that can be driven by art. It doesn't have to be soulless. So if it's a singer-songwriter thing and it's not a blues guitar thing, as I thought it might be for a while, I kept flitting between things, then perhaps that was what I should have done. Right, okay, let's look at what John Mayer's doing or Coldplay, whoever. I'm not actually that mad about Coldplay particularly. I don't dislike them, but I've mentioned them twice. I'm not a huge fan, but get a focus, decide what you're doing, and then find out how to do that. And really, but I was also trying to I spread myself really thin. So because I had this desire to be a professional musician, I've got to be out there being a professional. So that means I've got to support myself through doing gigs. So that means I've got to get on the phone and spend all my days on the phone in the early days to pubs, like that's not going to turn you into someone who's successful in the music business, spending like 8 hours a day phoning up, the Dog and Bone and like, hi mate,
have you heard this? Have you got the CD? Yeah, we've got it. We just ain't listened to it yet. They've had it 3 weeks.
Exactly. You got, where you got the or you turn up at the gig, with the posters you sent, you find them in the kitchen where you're getting changed, still in the tube. You know what I mean? It's a waste of time. I can see that now, and I should. You either go for, look, I want to get myself onto the role model is either Walter Trout, brilliant. I mean, fantastic as a role model where you go, right, what it is, I'm a blues guitarist. This music is never going to be mainstream. This is not going to be, played on the mainstream airwaves all of the time. It's not going to happen. But what we'll do is we have a real focus on it, stay absolutely true to it, like Walter does, and build it up. Hard work, touring, no distractions, no suddenly going off and doing an album of acoustic singer-songwriter stuff, because that's not what they want. You build a fan base, you stick with that market, and after years and years and years, you get to like a Walter level if you're good enough, because he's great at what he does and everything else. It's not just the hard work, but he has put a lot of hard work in. Like Walter, to me, talks about what he does in a kind of an admirably blue collar way. It's like, I just go to work every day as a guitar player. That's what I do. He doesn't present himself when you talk to him as like, oh, I'm a big star. It's just, no, I just go there slavishly each day, working hard to pay the bills by playing my guitar. And eventually it's got to a point where he works. After all the things that guy's been through, and he's still out there working incredibly hard, but obviously it's become much more rewarding for him financially, I assume, because of the fact that he's playing to bigger numbers and all the rest of it. And he deserves it because of his hard work. That's one path. That's the path actually that Chris Lomas was advising me to take when I was 20 and he was 40. He had that experience that we've got now, that understanding of the world. And Chris was very sensible. That's what you should be going for. We can build on that. We can get there. And he was right. We could have got there, with him as well, actually, probably with Parker's Alibi. But at the time, I had no idea. If someone said no, that you can do this, but you're going to have to get rid of that band or whatever. So when you're a kid, you go, oh, is that all the problem? Oh, okay then. But the other role model is probably someone like John Mayer, right? Where you go, and I don't know John Mayer at all. Obviously, I don't know anything about him, but where you go, look, I love the blues, for example. Apparently, he loved the blues in the same way that we did when he was a kid. I don't really know much about the guy because I've never met him, but I'll take the kind of his biog as read. So yeah, he was just like us. He heard Stevie Ray and Clapton or whatever when he was a kid, and he thought, this is great, and he learned to play guitar. However, he realized, perhaps being smarter than I was being, or being just using his brain a bit more, look, if I do that, I'm going to be in the pubs and clubs round the circuit forever. That's okay. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not criticizing that, but he has obviously made a choice there that he wanted something different, and he went down the pop road. I know he then came back to his blues thing later on, and whatever else he's chosen to do. I was somehow caught between the two of those, I think, somewhere. Not necessarily John Mayer and Walter, but those two ideas or ideals. I was stuck between them in the middle somewhere, because I kept flitting. So I'd have loads of times when I'd be on the road, but I was thinking to myself, oh, this is great fun, but this isn't what I'm really doing. I mean, I'm hoping to go to the next level, but while I'm doing that, I'm just going to keep going on these tours around Europe to keep paying the bills, and we'll break soon. We'll find a way of breaking. But, I wasn't really actively working out a way of breaking out of that, but I also wasn't really committing to that circuit,
So what advice would you have for yourself then, if you could go back in time?
Yeah, so I don't answer the questions, do I? I just ramble. You ask a question and I talk about something else. So the advice then for my younger self would be to, stop responding emotionally to stuff. Start responding intellectually rather than emotionally. Be a bit more. I have thought about this recently, actually. Sure, there's a time to sit, as if you're doing that full time. I'm not doing it full time anymore. It's not my profession anymore. But sure, there's a time to be purely artistic, plug in the emotional brain, write songs and stuff. That's great. And obviously performing. But there should have been other times where I just sat myself down and had a cold, hard look at the business of it. What are we doing here? If is it the blues I'm going for? If it is, right, sit down and work out how to make this work. Because there are ways, but you're going to have to work out what those ways are and really 100% commit to it. You can't keep flitting. The other thing I would advise to give to myself is don't listen to people 5 or 6 pints in at the end of the gig coming up and telling you you're amazing, because although that's a nice boost for the ego when you're an insecure 20 something, which I really was, very insecure, it's actually valueless. Other than that, it's really sweet. I'm not knocking those people. It's really sweet. They've enjoyed the gig. Oh, mate, I'll tell you what, you should be up there with, never mind Eric Clapton or, whatever. It's, you're better than, I've seen them all and you're the best I've ever, and I've seen, listing all these guitar heroes. Now, when that happens, I'm always polite because I know people mean well, but those conversations, to be honest with you, I'm not really in the conversation. Oh, thanks very much for coming. Thank you so much. And I'm out there really in my head, if not physically. But in those days, I was lapping that up, and that was a problem as well, because that kind of made me gave me a sort of sense of this learned helplessness of, oh, all these people say I've got this talent, and what a shame for me that it's not all working out for me perfectly. And that's just, now to me, it's just such nonsense. First of all, I now utterly believe that I just wasn't and aren't good enough. Simple as that. I'm not in the same league as John Mayer. I say John Mayer because he's like our age, almost exactly the same, I think, isn't he? I don't know. He's so he's someone who's had the same sort of upbringing, relatively speaking, probably as us. What I mean by that is musical upbringing, i.e. being born at roughly the same time, exposed to the same type of music, but hugely talented, much more. I'm just not on that. I'm not even in the ballpark. So actually, I no longer have this kind of victim feeling of, oh, I deserved so much more, but I didn't realize that when I was young. So I needed to advise myself on being a bit more critical about myself, listen back to some of the live performances and be a bit harsh and actually, that's pretty bad. And at times, I know the audience weren't saying that. They said, oh, no, we really liked it. It was great. But, come on, I was overplaying all the time, over singing, over emoting in the way I was singing. I listen back and I'm embarrassed a lot of the time now, to tell you the truth. But I wasn't prepared to sit down and be that critical about it. And I needed to be, and say, actually, what do I need to do to improve,
What are you most proud of then, out of your music career so far?
Well, I made that first album I made for Thomas, the one that was a disaster in terms of the blues circuit.
Inside.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not saying that's not the thing I'm most proud of, but the direction I was going in there, actually, looking back, I haven't listened to it for years, but I know what's on there, obviously. That direction, not necessarily the way I played it or the way it was produced or recorded, and I'm sure there's probably a few things on there that needed scrapping, but that direction, I think, was the right thing for me. That was the amalgamation of all of my influences, and it felt that was actually me. But it's just that I'd signed to Thomas, it's not his fault, but I'd signed to Thomas with that, and it wasn't the right thing for him. So I was panicking, I'm going to get dropped from the label. So I changed direction, whereas probably I should have stuck to my guns and carried on making music like that, but getting better at it, and either started releasing independently or looking for someone else to release it who might be interested in it. So as a result, again, I know I'm on a tangent here again, but I will answer your question. the point is, a lot of the stuff I made in the subsequent years after that album, it's not that I don't think it's terrible. I'm not ashamed of it or anything, but I'm not as proud as I could have been because I was starting to try and play a game to fit in to the market and a genre and everything else that I mean, I love blues. I still do. I still listen to blues more than I listen to any other genre. But I was trying to fit into a marketplace that's not just blues. Actually, it's blues rock, isn't it? It's very much like a scene there. So I was making music that I was giving it all my sort of heart and soul, but in some way it wasn't quite me. But then I made an album in 2012. It was like a project album, singer-songwriter thing, called The Stonehouse, and I gave it a completely different name, like a fake band name, Kimber. I don't know if it's on the biog you've got there.
Yeah. I've got Kimber, 2013.
I'm really proud of that in a totally different way. That's nothing to do with blues at all. That's just singer-songwriter, very English sounding, and I spent that whole project was just me on my own. I mean, other people played on it in the end, but I was off the road by that point. I'd stopped touring. And I was just sitting at home, writing that album, demoing it in lots of detail for the first time, where I'd gone into that with like a drum machine, playing bass on it. I got a keyboard. It wasn't very sophisticated, but I was playing like cello parts, so that when I got the cello player came in, I said, look, I've written these parts. I don't know if they're really the best ones, but at least I gave her guidance. She used most of them, and she might have changed a few bits, which is great. But I was really dedicated to that project, and that was a labor of love. I always thought I can make this album where I really express myself, singer-songwriter stuff. It did absolutely nothing in terms of sales because there was no one behind it, and I really had run out of steam. It's so far removed from all my blues stuff that I couldn't really try and sell it to the same audience. I mean, a few of those people bought it, and some liked it because they accepted it. It's not blues. It's just doing a side project. But I had no audience for it, and by that time I was just exhausted with the idea of starting again and trying to find a new audience and start touring this thing in little clubs and pubs again, trying to recreate myself. So that just turned out to be a really expensive labor of love, but I'm still really proud of that. I can still put that on and think, oh, actually, there's some credibility about that. There's nothing on there where I cringe and go, oh, why did I sing it like that? Or what was that lyric? I like that record, but there's probably only, I don't know, I've lost track of how many are out there. I had 1,000 pressed. I've still got loads in the garage, probably around 500 copies of that out there in circulation. I don't know if anyone listens to it or cares about it, but I listen to it about once a year. I'll put it on just to check in. Do I still think it's all right, or has it got to the point where I think actually it was rubbish? But I think it's okay. I find it difficult to feel really proud of stuff where I don't think I'm a very good guitarist really on the big scale of things. So I listen to my, like, anything to do with my guitar playing. I'm always, like blues guitar playing, I feel embarrassed. So the records where it's that, I'm like, oh, actually, I'm just not that good. And as I say, I used to over sing so much and over emote that it's hard. I don't feel as proud as I would like to in a way, but equally, I don't regret it or anything. It just is what it is,
What's your favourite song off of Inside?
There's a couple of songs on there that I like. There's in terms of song structure, I think there's a song called Meant to Be, which I think the structure of that song, the way I put it together, I listen back now and I think actually that was, I don't know if it was just a fluke or something, because I didn't really know it's different to the way I was writing at the time it is. And I think just the structure of the way the song, it's not just a kind of verse, chorus thing like I always used to write with a middle eight in the middle. There's something a bit different about the structure of it and the melody. And I think the lyrics still have a credibility. I think that one's, for me, stands the test of time in terms of my judgment. I still think it's not particularly bluesy. It's got a kind of bluesy solo in it, only a short one, but it's got, sort of pentatonic-y things going on over what is basically a singer-songwriter thing. I like that. And there's one in there called Dear Lord, which was like, in terms of the emotion of it and the lyrics, that meant a lot to me at the time. I was thinking about it the other day, thinking about maybe playing that again, just with the band when we get touring. Well, I say touring, we don't really tour, but when we go back to doing some gigs again, maybe bring out some of these old songs just to play them again. But that song meant a lot to me at the time. I was very lost in my early 20s actually. I really was, and that song sort of sums a lot of that up for me.
And what about on the Stone House? What's your favourite songs of that?
There's some. Let me think. I'm going to embarrass myself by not being able to remember the titles of it, which is terrible. I mean, that one. There's nothing on there that there isn't a song on there where there's not a song on there where I think, oh, I wish that wasn't on there. I'm quite comfortable with them all. There is a song. It's called. I can't remember. This is terrible, Tommy. I've forgotten the title of it. I might have to email you with the title, and I'll answer that by email. If I can
play it on the podcast, that's the idea.
Yeah, sure. No, I'll let you know. I know the song in my head, and I can't remember because I can't remember the lyrics because I've never toured it, and this is nearly 10 years ago, and I recorded it all. So it wasn't actually those songs. It wasn't like writing songs, touring them a bit, and then going in the studio like all the other stuff. This was like write a song and go and record it, and with the lyrics in front of me. So I have never sung them, so I don't in a way I don't know those songs. I'm like a punter when I listen to it. I'm listening to it like a listener, I don't know them. I'll email that though because I know which song I want to say. I just can't remember what it's called.
So let's get to the guitar stuff then. Who's your top 3 guitar players?
Like you mean like in terms of like
inspired you? Yeah,
okay. I would say Eric Clapton is an obvious one with me. I mean, you can hear that too much when I play, and that's another reason why I get embarrassed. Really, I know that I'm not. Again, it's that parody thing. It's not. It's all right to be influenced, sure, but I didn't shake off the Clapton thing enough. I got so into him when I was from a really formative age, when I was 13, 14. It's such an influence because, I hear him now. If I'm a bit more analytical, I listen to Eric Clapton. I don't mean the way he plays now, because obviously, he's at a different stage of life. But I like that period in the late 80s, early 90s. That was when I was hearing him as a teenager, and God, this guy's amazing, And I hear it now, and I think, okay, actually, it's not as sophisticated as there are a lot of other, in terms of tone and technique and knowledge of sort of scales and responding to chord changes and stuff. It's not sophisticated in the way that I know there are other players that are more sophisticated, but what he has always had throughout his career is, to me anyway, I just find that he expresses his soul through the guitar like nobody else. And I know it's simple, it's easy to copy relatively, if you can play like we're guitar players, I'm not saying it's easy if you're just starting or anything, but what I mean. You and I could jam and we could play some Clapton licks. It's not complex, but he just expresses himself in a way that is to do with. It's not really to do with what he can do with his hands. It's to do with who he is and his soul. And that aspect influenced me more than anything about the fact that actually it's about communication. And the reason why I think he's so popular for the man on the street. There are lots of, if you go, I don't know about now because time moves on, doesn't it? But for many, many years, decades, if you ask the man on the street who doesn't necessarily know loads about music or guitar players, who's the best electric guitar player in the world, they'd probably go, probably Eric Clapton, but that's partly because, okay, he's commercial, he's a commercial success, but there's all thing I think where he just communicates, he plays the guitar, and you don't have to be an educated listener to feel something, I think, anyway. I don't know, that's what I feel. So that's why I would say Clapton. Then after that, I would say B.B. King, because again, it's formative, because my dad had Live at the Regal in that record collection that I was talking about. So even before I knew that was a seminal blues record, he had that, because obviously my dad didn't at the time have a deep knowledge of blues, but he liked blues. He liked John Mayall, and he got like a couple of key records. So he got Live at the Regal. So hearing that, the way, and my dad, who's not a guitarist, but he plays drums just for fun. I mean, he's not a a very advanced player, but he would, when I was learning to play electric guitar, he would teach me. He just, in terms of by just saying like, listen to BB, listen to what he's playing, listen to what he's not playing. Those kind of comments that when you're only a kid, you need to have that pointed out to you by an adult. Oh yeah, because he's not just blazing through it all. He'll play a couple of notes, but listen to how great that is. Listen to the fact that he doesn't play now and then he plays again, and it's like talking, So BB, for that reason, is really important to me. As a guitarist. Then who would be number 3 on the guitar front? Don't know really. So I'm not even sure. I mean, possibly Stevie Ray. You know, the thing, if I'm honest about Stevie Ray, he's influenced everyone, hasn't he? It's like almost like Stevie Ray guitar playing is a genre in its own. It's like a sub-genre of the blues, isn't it? It certainly was from like throughout the 90s and probably the noughties period, because he, you know, when we used, you know, you go to a blues festival and there'd always be a few people playing in that vein, you know, and it's great, you know. But I've thought about it more recently. I don't really, if I'm honest, I'm not actually a big fan of his music. You know, I'm a big fan of his playing, but I'm not a huge fan of his music. I'll put a Stevie Ray album on sometimes, and if I'm honest, I probably won't listen to the whole record. But I suppose, you know, you can't really be of our generation and not have been influenced by him as a guitar player to some degree, you know.
It's weird, Texas blues, because T-Bone Walker influenced BB, and T-Bone was from Texas, so it goes a weird sort of, and Freddie King, obviously.
Yeah, no, you're right. And what I mean by Texas blues, I'm not making. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I love Freddie King. I love Freddie King. He was another big influence, definitely, because it felt a bit like with Freddie, like BB was so a bit too sophisticated for me, but still now. But when I was a kid, I couldn't really do that. Whereas Freddie's kind of more like,
raunchy.
I don't know, more. Yeah, no, I could kind of go for that a bit more as a player and feel like I was doing it really. But you're right. Obviously, he was Texan, but it's more like your white Texan players. Actually, if I don't really mean to make a racial divide, but if you know what I mean, that kind of coming up in the 70s and 80s, like the Fabulous Thunderbirds. And I like them, by the way. I mean, I think they were great. But there's a style there, isn't there? That's like, I know obviously Stevie Ray, kind of macho, you know, like a sort of macho version of blues, and there's some and. I don't know, something about that I don't dislike, but it's not my favourite. It's not my preferred choice of blues music that I want to hear. But obviously Stevie Ray's guitar playing, without doubt, was just phenomenal.
He's like a melting pot of a lot of people. That's some of the research I did on his playing. Lonnie Mack, Albert King, you could hear him, and he took little bits of everyone and then sort of made it his own. But the same with Clapton, he was influenced by, you know, B.B. King, obviously, Big Bill Broonzy and all them guys.
Yeah.
So, and that's all like yourself and me do. We learn off them guys, and we play bits of everybody, you know.
Yeah, I feel like I do it more nowadays. I feel like I can very easily slip into my Clapton impression thing, but if I'm just like going on autopilot, that's what will come out. I noodle, you know. There's a guitar in the corner here, and I've got a little boy. 3-year-old boy. I'm a school teacher now, you know. I'm really busy, but I still pick up a guitar, and it's literally I'm grabbing it for a minute. I've got like 60 seconds, and I'm noodling. So when I'm doing that, I'm coming up. I feel like I'm being more inventive actually with the guitar than I used to be. Ironically, when that was my job, you know. But now, because I'm not trying to, I know I'm just messing about really. And I feel like when I do gigs now, I don't feel I'm under any pressure because it's not my job as such anymore. I'm not like got back here. Promoter needs to think this about me. It's like I just turn up and enjoy myself, and obviously I do my best because people are paid to see it. So I'm always trying, but I'm really relaxed, and I think in some ways I'm playing better for that, and so therefore I'm a bit more experimental than I used to be probably.
Your pedals. What's your favorite pedal on your pedal board?
You know what? I'm rubbish at these kind of conversations. People who've played with me know what I'm like about stuff like this. You know what? And this actually, I would have told my younger self, by the way, to have much more focus on this stuff. I've never been a gear head at all. Like I've got the same pedals now that I've been using for the last 15 years. And I haven't researched it much. I haven't like gone out and looked at other things. So I don't even have a board anymore. I just got these pedals loose in a 80s briefcase that I open up and put them on the stage, you know. So I've got like, there's a Boss tuner, and then next to that, I always have a DD3 running on the really close setting. And to be honest, that's just compensating for me not having that really nice glassy tone that you get from heavy strings, because I only ever use 10s, and to be honest, these days I'm playing really infrequently. I'm using 9s now because my fingers are just falling off if I try, because I don't play, you know. So I'm halfway through a gig and I can't even do this, you know. So I'm a real wimp. So I don't think I've, in the way that like you, certainly yourself and Ainsley, I watch when we do gigs with Ainsley, which we still do occasionally, a couple of a year, that guy he'll get set up all of his amps, like 2 or 3 amps, and he's on his hands and knees in front of them, dialing it in, and he's there for ages, and he hears stuff I can't even hear, like I don't even know the difference, but he until he gets it right, and then it's fantastic. I turn up. Back in the day I was using a dual professional, so I was using a point to point hand wired nice Fender amp, but these days I've still got it in storage actually, but these days I'm using I don't even know what it is, a Blues Deluxe or something. It's only got 112 in there, so it's nice and light. It's okay, it doesn't sound, it's Fender, it doesn't sound rubbish, but I'm not seeking that tone thing. And to be honest, I was never very good at that. So the DD, the Boss delay pedal, I just have it on a really close setting, and it just sort of beefs it up and cleans it up a bit. That's what I find anyway. I don't think it comes over as having a delay on it. There's no repetition of notes, and probably the way I've got it running, you can't really necessarily hear that it's a delay pedal. It just sort of beefs it up a bit. But I've done that for the last 20 years, And then there's a Boss Blues driver and a Boss overdrive, the yellow one.
Yeah. So
there's like the Blues driver, I think it's called. Is it Blues driver? Yeah, Blues driver, the blue one, and then the yellow one. And that's it, and I've got, like everyone has, I've got a tube screamer in a box somewhere, but actually I know, funnily enough, I never got on with that as much, but that's probably because I wasn't doing it properly, because I never had, like, I imagine, I don't know, I can't remember, I imagine you probably used tube screamer, or you have done, but you're using heavy strings, aren't you, and you're playing really, like, driving a Fender amp really clean, and then the tube screamer probably works with that. I found it a bit fuzzy because I wasn't driving the amp as much, and I'm using light strings, and
I think mine's fuzzy.
Well,
buzzing, fuzzy, all kinds of stuff coming out.
Yeah, but because of the tone you've got coming out of the amp and heavy strings, it works, I'm sure.
I'm like you, I just plug and play.
Honestly, now it's comedy, really. I'm not proud of it, but it's just the reality. I'll turn up. Like, I remember a few years ago when Walter was unwell, and we did that Shepherd's Bush. There was a benefit concert for him, and they were trying to get through a lot of bands, And back in the day when I was touring, I would have been a nightmare. I would have been an absolute nightmare, because I would have been like, no. My amp goes there on the stage. It always goes there. It's next to the drums, and it goes there, and we need this there and that there. And I'd have a rack of 15 guitars that I wasn't going to use and all the rest of it. Whereas now, because since I've been teaching, and I'm doing this as a hobbyist, really. So I just turned up at Shepherd's Bush, and this sound guy was a bit stressed, understandably. He's got a lot of acts to deal with. And by the time it got to me turning up to sound check, I could tell he'd had enough already. And he was a bit, he was a bit offish, but I'm not criticizing him on a personal level. He was just stressed, and he was busy and everything. And he probably had a lot. He dealt with one guitarist after another saying, no, but my amp's got to be there. It can't be anywhere. And I literally walked in, and I stopped where he walked up to me, and wherever he met me on the stage, and said, right, what are you doing? Who are you? Blah, blah, blah. And I put the amp down, and then because I could see he was really stressed, I went, look, mate, don't worry. I'll leave the amp there. And it wasn't even pointing in the right direction, but it was just where I put it down. This is how slack I've become. And I just, next thing I know, I'm just doing the gig, and it's just there. And he was like, and after he's like, was everything all right for you? Could you hear anything? Like, yeah, it's fine, mate. Don't worry about it. So I've become ridiculously relaxed in that way. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I don't know. The stuff I use, it works well enough. I don't have anyone coming up saying they want their money back because they weren't happy with the quality of my tone. It's all right, but I'm not in the same league as yourself and Ainsley, guys that really understand that stuff and really go after it.
Well, I'll say this to you: the first time I heard you play, I don't exactly, but I know it was a festival out in Europe, and I think I was playing with Marcus Malone back then. So it was in the early days, and I heard this guitar player, and I thought, fuck, that sounds good. And I was outside this marquee, this tent, and like you said, you was playing for a while, and this guitar solo was building and building and building, and I looked in, and it was you on the stage playing.
Ah.
And I thought to myself, I said, that's a really good. You built the solo right up, and it was really nice, and you was hitting all them lovely high notes. And that was the first time I heard you play. We've never, for our careers, we've never really met a lot. We've just met briefly and out again. But
yeah,
I saw you another time, probably 15 years after that, at one of Monica's festivals.
Yeah.
And you played then. At that point, I did think you sounded very Clapton-like there. But but your actual playing and the solos were really good. They were strong, powerful, sounded great. The band was tight, and couldn't fault you. It sounded nice,
Yeah,
and that's me as a player, being honest and saying they're the only 2 times I've really seen you, other than the jam we did with Otis, and that was just a jam. But them 2 times with your band, that you were amazing player. I mean, like myself, I don't see myself as a technical player, but the feeling was there, and the way you built it. And them 2 times I saw you, that's all I have to go by. That first time, that was a long solo, man. I was outside, talking, and I could hear this guitar playing, and I went in then after about, I don't know, 30 minutes, I don't know. And you're still soloing. And I think you had a white suit on. Some sort of white...
I can't remember.
But
I cannot remember.
So never put yourself down, man, because you're a great player, So
well, thanks. It's very kind of you. Thank you, but I'm not putting myself down. Actually, in the sense, I don't feel like I'm not sort of saying, I'm just being. I'm at this point. I used to be so invested in the whole thing, and that's when I said earlier on in this conversation. I said I got a bit hurt by music. I got hurt by the fact that I invested so much of myself, who I am, in my music career and trying to get to wherever it was I was aiming for with it, that when I realized that I probably couldn't get there and I wasn't good enough to get there, that was painful for my ego to take, But I'm in a totally different...
So I think you're good enough to get there. I definitely think you're good enough to get there, without a doubt. I just think it's just... hitting the right path, the right road, and it still might happen yet,
I'm not trying to no.
But that's when things happen when you don't try.
Well, I'm not even sure I want anything. I would want it really. I mean, I'm really happy. My life now is I'm in education. I'm a teacher, and I love doing that. I'm not doing that because I needed to get a job. I mean, I needed to get a job, but if I wasn't going to do music, I had to find something else to earn a living, obviously. But I'm really passionate about that, like really into it. And I love it. I love doing that. These days, my obviously not at the moment, but ordinarily my routine is like up at 5:36 latest. Shower, breakfast, off to work, getting on with loads of things there. The kids come in, teaching them, etc. And I find it a really stimulating job. I really enjoy it. I wouldn't. It's not a case of I'm doing that, but if I suddenly had a hit record, I'd quit that. I love doing it, So for me, the reason why I still do music is not because I don't do it because I have to earn the money. It's great, by the way, to have the extra income. I'm not complaining about that at all. It's great, it's fantastic. But I'm doing it because it's still part of who my identity. Like I'd hate the idea of me never playing anymore. We just doesn't do any gigs. I barely pick up the guitar. I'm a school teacher and nothing else. So I love the fact that there's still part of me, that there's still an element of who I am. That's Ian, the guitar player, who goes out, even if it's only once a month, and plays and puts out an album every 2 or 3 years. That's made on a shoestring these days, just for the fun of making a record, and just for the people that are still interested in my music, because they can still buy something new, But I'm really happy with that. There's no part of me I don't sort of sit there at school fantasizing about having a breakthrough record, or I just don't think about it. But I also, where I agree with you on this, being a musician it's not a job status. It's who you are. So I might carry on, being a school teacher for the next 20 years. And then it might be that when I retire from doing that, as you say, who knows, I might at that point do something with music. I'll be getting on by then, obviously, but it's not going to be a massive commercial success, but it might be that the best music I'm going to make hasn't happened yet. I accept that, but it won't be happening in the short term, to be honest, because I just don't put any time into it. Other than we do the gigs, and I turn up for those, I walk on stage and I play. And usually when I play, that's the first time I've really played the guitar or sung since the last gig a month ago. That's the reality.
So people who are watching this, where's the best place for them to find out more about you then? Is it your website, ianparkermusic.com?
Yeah, that's still up and running. My friend Rob White has been running that for actually probably 20 years now. It might even be more than that. He's a great guy. He set that up. Rob set that up because he met me at the Torrington in Finchley, and he realized that I was utterly useless at that point for anything other than just doing my gigs. And this is, it was still the 90s, I think, because it was when having a website was a really new thing. But people had them, and he said, look, you really need to get a website. And I was like, yeah, whatever, man, I need a record deal, not a website. But so we probably had a couple of conversations where he felt like, oh, this kid's just not listening to me. So he just created it and emailed to say, you've got a website now, I've made it and I'm going to run it, just tell me what you want on it, or just send me your dates. So that's great. So that still exists, so you can find the dates on there. And my Facebook page, when I started that page, I only ever used it for gigs. Then it got a bit mixed up with me starting to then post stuff on there, when my boy was born. I started posting more personal things. Then I started having political rants on there, which I decided to stop doing. So actually, at the moment, the Ian Parker Facebook page is only for, I'll just put information on there about gigs, so people, if can find information through those two sources, really.
And what's next for you then? What have you got in the next couple of years planned?
I don't know, really. In terms of music, I'm not sure. I mean,
have you written anything?
That's the one area that I would like to do. I haven't really. I've got at the moment probably 3 or 4 songs that I haven't written recently. They've been written over the last couple of years.
Right.
That I would like to record at some point. But for me at this point, it's just all about, you see the last record, Spoonful of Gold, which I was really happy with. It's just an out and out blues record. Everyone on the floor at the same time playing completely live. Did it in 2 days. And I'm really happy with the outcome of that. But, because I don't tour anymore, and because CDs, like physical product, doesn't sell like it used to. When we were back in the day, we would do a festival, as you had this experience, I'm sure, like in 2000, 2005, probably up until about 2010, maybe, I don't know. You do a festival like that and you finish playing, and then you open the CD case at the front of the stage and it's like sell 100 CDs or something there and then, I don't think that's happening. I don't know, because I'm not doing it. I'm not out there doing it full on anymore. But people don't buy CDs like they used to. They don't buy that physical product because they want to download and stuff. So that's different. So me making that album and getting 1,000 of those pressed, I still haven't recouped that in the last couple of years, which isn't really a big deal, because I like the album. People, when I do my occasional gigs and occasional little weekends abroad that I do, we've got a new product and people buy it. But I also have to be just responsible these days about, well, actually, can I afford to make another album until that one's recouped? I mean, I can find the money, it's not a case of there's no money in the pot, but should I keep spending like $6,000 and record another album that I'm not going to recoup on, So I have to think a bit like that these days. So I've got a few songs. Eventually, it will probably take another couple of years before I've got enough songs, to make a new album. Then I'll need to think how can I get these recorded to a good enough standard that's acceptable for people, my audience that that want to buy quality product, but where I can bring it in on a budget that means I can recoup. I'm not bothered about making money from it, to be honest, but not lose money every time. I can't make a record every 2 years and that costs me $3 or $4,000, really. It's not really responsible,
No, so be on the road then, mostly doing your gigs.
So yeah, I never answer your question, Tommy. I never answer your question. Doesn't matter what you ask, I just ramble about something else. I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm really not. Yeah, so the next couple of years is going to be just, my sporadic gigs. We had been, ever since I became a teacher, we would go at least twice a year. We'd still go to Europe, only for little jaunts, 3-4 gigs maximum, which was great. Loved that. To be honest, with I told I've still got a couple of agents that are working. They're not doing. Obviously, I'm the least important artist on their rosters at this point because I don't want many gigs, you know. But I've actually asked them at the moment, don't book anything because I'm waiting to see what happens with this Brexit thing, to be honest, because I'm sure it'll be resolved because we can't have a situation where people can't tour anymore. But I just don't want to get myself into a situation where I don't really need to go and play in terms of earning a living, and then find myself going out and costing ridiculous amount of money because of visas or whatever else. Maybe it won't happen. I'm not trying to be a scaremonger at all. I really genuinely am concerned about all of my friends that are still out there trying to make a living from this, but I'm sure they'll eventually smooth it over. But I'm sort of, because I don't desperately need to do it, I'm saying to Mick, who books all the gigs, and to the agents, look, let's just leave it for 12 months in terms of Europe and see how it pans out once we know now that we're coming out of Europe, and are we still going to be able to tour without it being really complicated or without it costing loads of money? If we are, I'll carry on doing a few gigs there. So at the moment, in the short term, it's UK gigs, one a month probably, some round and about somewhere. That's all right for me.
Well, hopefully we'll get to do something together in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm really into that these days, into collaborations, because it's fun, And I say the main avenue for that with me has been with Ainsley, but it's been great. It's just that, and also you sit back and you think, actually, we've together there, without going to any trouble, because I do my set, I always go on first. He's so sweet. He's always saying, oh no, we should alternate. I'm like, Ainsley, I haven't been on the circuit properly doing this for like 8 years now. You're still out there earning your living from it. You're a much bigger name overall. I'll go on first. I'm more than happy to go on, do my set. He does his, and then we have a jam, and I look back on an evening like that and think, actually, that was really good value for money for those people. If they're into that, if they're into their blues guitar thing, they've had two, good quality acts and a jam session, which they love. The jam session's dead relaxed because, again, as I say, that any kind of competitive element that would have been there 20 years ago or probably even 10 years ago is just not there. It's just like Ainsley's a considerably better guitar player than me. I love hearing him play, and I'm just we trade licks and stuff, and he's really generous with me. He's really kind, yeah, you go, Ian Parker, he's great and all this, but I'm just having fun, and he's brilliant with it, and it's cool. So I'm really into the collaboration thing now. I mean, I think it's fun. So yeah, if we get a chance to do that, man, that'll be great. Yeah.
Right, and I asked, this is another thing I've been doing, asking just quick fire questions, so try not to think about it too much and just give your first answer. So what's needed or what's right? What would you choose?
What's needed?
Or what's
would I choose what's needed or what's right? Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, I don't know. See what? It's hard not to think about it deeply because that's a really philosophical question. When I was younger, it would have been what's right, definitely, right? As I'm getting older, I'm probably becoming not without principle, because what's right is important, but I think you can get lost a little bit in what's right. Sometimes it's what's needed, because if you focus on what's needed, you're going to make a difference, where you can be focusing on what's right and sit in your bedroom worrying about what's right and make absolutely no difference to the world.
So what's needed? Is that your answer?
I think this is like, do you know what? This is like Jeremy Paxman interviewing a politician, isn't it? I just won't answer your questions.
I know.
I think I'm probably going towards what's needed these days, yeah.
Silence or conversation?
Silence. I'm a bit strange like that.
Love or money?
Love.
Clapton or Peter Green?
I didn't mention Peter Green, my guitarist. That's ridiculous. I should have. Yeah, see, again, that's, yeah. I should have put Peter Green in, to be honest, instead of Stevie Ray, really. Definitely more of an influence on my playing personally. That's a tricky one, really. Overall, I'm not supposed to be overthinking this. Overall, in terms of decade after decade of influence, Eric Clapton. But I mean, how sophisticated was Peter Green's playing at that time?
To me, out of the British players, he's one of my favourites, personally.
Me too. I mean, I remember.
I love Clapton and Kossoff and all them guys, but Peter Green had a lovely feel and a.
I was just so mature for like a guy in his early 20s. I read, like, there was something he said probably at the time in the late 60s where he said he loved Eric Clapton, but he said Cream left him a bit cold, just the endless jamming and stuff. And I listened to Cream actually a couple of weeks ago because we're in this lockdown. I'm listening to loads of stuff I haven't listened to for years. And I used to love live Cream recordings when I was a kid. And it's great in so many ways still. But I thought, yeah, I can see Peter's view on this now a bit, really. You know, it's like 20 minutes of playing where a lot of the time they don't even need to listen to each other. They're just playing their thing, you know. I mean, I'd get shot by Cream fans for saying that. And I do love Cream, but I thought, yeah, actually what Peter was doing at the time being so much more emotional.
Oh, yeah. And even the way he started going a bit more rockier, it was totally different. You know, like Rattlesnake Shake and the Green Man Alicia and all that stuff.
Great. I mean, the structure of Green Man Alicia as a track and how dark that is. I mean, he was right on the edge of, I think, of crossing over the line there into being actually not just a tortured artist, but actually becoming unwell. But, you know, just amazing, you know, real depth. Yeah.
Acoustic or electric?
I'm electric again at the moment. I'm just finding that I enjoy doing that. It's fun.
Willie Dixon or Howlin' Wolf?
Willie Dixon, because I think, you know, I'm not supposed to answer him. I just give you the one word answer, really. But yeah, well, just because you know, there'd be a lot of Howlin' Wolf missing, wouldn't there, without Willie Dixon? A lot of the catalogue wouldn't be there.
Do you believe in ghosts?
No, I dream about them sometimes, though. I have a recurrent dream where I'm in a room and there's a ghost and it comes at me and I can feel the force of it pushing me up against the wall, and it's horrific and it wakes me up in a cold sweat. But I don't think about ghosts. I don't believe in ghosts, really.
Marmite, yes or no?
Yeah, not too much, but yeah.
And what's the first thing you grab in the morning?
Phone.
Oh, great, Ian. Thank you.
Thanks, Tommy. Thanks for having me. Good to chat to you.
See you soon, Ian. Look after yourself and the family.
Yeah, you too, mate. Stay safe.
Cheers. Bye.
See you, Tom. See you.
Hey, it's Tommy Allen from TommyAllenMusic.com, and that was Ian Parker. To find out more about him and his music, go to IanParkerMusic.com. Next week, we have Mike Exeter, sound engineer and producer to bands like Black Sabbath and Judas Priest. Let's come and check that out. Please hit the subscribe button, give us a like, hit the bell icon. Until next week, a word from our director.
God, there's so much fun. It's never ending.
I think you missed a bit.
Shut up. There's just so much.
Coco.
Really?
Coco.
It takes a lot of looking to look this good.
Coco.
Shut up.
Coco.
There's so much.
She's in the zone.